Ooh, what's happening, bruh? Um, man, um, I've been just kind of listening to random stuff today, trying to take my mind off some other things. Um, Unfortunate. It's exactly what I've kind of hypothesized before, like in the context of kind of anthropomorphizing this place, right? If you have some very, very like positive or progressive or deep, good things happen. Not all the time, but it's very likely or possible for this place to like hit back, to like try to knock you backwards, or do something to offset that positive progression, or those emotions that have released beneficial chemicals in your body. So, I don't, as much as I have to try my best to like upkeep those all that stuff, I try not to let it like bother me in that way, because I know what will not happen, if that makes any sense. I know what won't happen. So, as much as it tries to insinuate or imply or impose itself on you through other beings, I don't let it do that. And to anytime I talk like this, there's always like a couple beings who maybe know me or maybe don't, who try to, very dismissively or divisively, like insinuate that I'm like off or crazy or whatever because I speak this way. But then they'll go and start talking about some biblical stuff, or they'll say that they met a person who was possessed by a demon. Like, it shows how indoctrinated this place is towards certain narratives. So one metaphysical thing completely acceptable, a divergent metaphysical theory or belief completely quacked. Not at all, possible or able to be empathetically considered. That's very revealing. That's very revealing to me. It does the opposite of what those beings seem to be trying to do. It only affirms what I'm saying. For me, it only affirms what I'm saying. You're so able to be used and influenced by this place that you're not even aware of the lack of like logic that you're displaying. You'll attack one person's metaphysical theories, thoughts, beliefs, whatever, but then you'll go and say yours like they're just, everyday life. If I believed in it, to me, that would be an instance of, mental illness. But I'll just say that's delusion. Delusions of grandeur, even, actually. Both, really. But regardless of that, so I'm that was a huge digression, but that's been on my mind, so I needed to say that again. So I'm listening to I guess it kind of applies to this too, because every once in a while I'll listen to something that ends up being more dogmatic than I'm comfortable with, or than I would like. And it's interesting just to hear them speak on stuff, because there's such a specific knowing and faith, or not a knowing, it's such a specific belief because they don't know. That's the whole thing. And the aspects of it that make it a cult, are they've been so intelligently tailored into aspects of those faith systems, of those belief systems. So, for instance, like if if um, if someone comes along and tries to say like, well, so how do you know that your God is any more real than these other groups' gods, or than the gods that, if they're historians, because I don't tend to listen to just like dogmatic or Abrahamic people. They're usually like some kind of researcher or historian of some kind, or, theologian, something like that. There's an extra aspect to them. They're just very like, influenced by faith and by their own religion, which is fine for them. But if you were to ask them that, they give you reasons, but their reasons aren't like, they're not good reasons. It's just more faith. They answer you with their faith, which is fine, but that's not a satisfactory answer for someone that does not believe in what you have faith in. And so you reach an impasse, which is also fine. But what I've noticed many times with those dogmatic religions, not even just Abrahamic, but just dogmatic religions in general, cults. Let's just call them cults. Because there's the Satanists, they're also like devil worshippers, that specific vein. I'm not going to call them Luciferians because I vehemently have a problem with that. So Satanists and devil worshippers have a very similar air to them, where they get so deep off into that shit that it becomes like a chip on their shoulder. Same thing with Christians, any of the Abrahamic religions, any cults, that it just becomes a chip on their shoulder. It becomes an aspect of them that they're unable to remove themselves from. So it affects everything. And listening to I clicked on this video because the title interests me. It was basically saying something about how Joker, the archetype of Joker, the character from Batman, Joker, is a demon, is a fallen angel or a Nephilim or something like that. I can't remember what it was specifically, but and then I listened to the clip, and most of it is just kind of like youth ministering to you. And then there's a very small portion at the end of the clip where it goes into the topic that it's called, where it references the concept. And it was interesting, the concept that Joker character is almost an egregore demon that can, possess the invokee, or the one that's unknowingly giving veneration to that character, to that demon Joker. But, I would say this to the dogmatic Abrahamic, just as I would say it to those that are practicing magic, the psychological kind, to the CK kind, the mental alchemy, exploring aspects of yourself kind of magic. I hate that I have to call it that. That's not magic. Can we please stop calling it magic? You know what I mean? Can we fucking stop doing that? But since it's still that, I have to call it that. I would say the same thing to both sides of that. Is like, that is psychology. More times than not, those beings are there. It's a very intense cry for help, or they have some sort of imbalance, or there's some kind of very literal chemical thing happening in their body. Like maybe they ate some ergot, some moldy bread. Maybe they were dosed. Like, there's many, many, many explanations for a hypnagogic state. Or a psychoactive reaction in the body that creates delusions or hallucinations or fractured psyches. There are all these explanations, but rather than acknowledging those, even not saying that your thing can't be true too, rather than acknowledging those, potential reasons, they throw all those to the side and say, nope, it's only, it's only possession or demons and so on. And some of them, so I'm generalizing. Some of them will acknowledge that those other things are possible, but they don't talk like that. The story that the dude told about coming into contact with somebody who was just kind of sitting quietly drawing eyeballs over and over again. There is mythology that connects to eyeballs, but at the same time, suggestion is a very real thing. And if you come up to someone that is suffering, or they're going through a tough time, or they just need interaction, and you start imposing your beliefs onto them, who's to say that they're not going along with what you're saying just so you keep talking to them, or so that you keep acknowledging them, or so that you help them. They feel as though you actually care about them because you're speaking to them, when even you within this story admit no one cared about them, no one was around them, they were sitting by themselves. These are things that just get skipped over, and it joins this gigantic thought form that is that Abrahamic or dogmatic religion, specifically religious cult. And it's just like, the Inquisition, and the very, very nasty things that were done to beings, essentially just because psychopaths were in positions of power. The witch trials, the Inquisition, all these things where beings were just tortured and murdered. And if you go back and read the journals or the documentation, or just the secondary or firsthand accounts of some of these beings that were in power in the church, in the Inquisition, in the witch trials, they were nuts. They were not well, they just had power. They sounded fucking crazy, and we've just gotten enough space between these supposed times that happened, because you know how I feel about history. But if we're all agreeing that these times supposedly happened, then you're worshiping in a system that murders, rapes, pillages, enslaves, just everything that you say you don't condone comes from your religion. And yet, there's the kind of sand or gall to do yet another thing you say you don't do, and judge anyone that is even the slightest bit critical of your theory. Theory is supposed to be stress tested. So I'm not taking it so far as to say, oh, these beings that say your faith isn't real, fine, you're being defensive in that situation. But there are beings that are just being critical of your theories, or listening to the theories that you're presenting and giving what they think or their feedback, and just the cult thing comes out. And I was just thinking about that as I'm listening to this, and I wanted to add to the conversation, but I remembered I basically was I'm not gonna comment here anymore. You're trying to present yourself as this scientific being that's presenting these theories and whatnot, but you don't want to hear anyone else's opinion of your theories, which, to be honest, is very common for dogmatic and Abrahamic theologians. I just realized that. You're doing exactly what they all do. Anyone that is, critical of those types of thought processes is just inconsequential to those beings. So if someone says, hey, so when you talk about Dionysus, there's also Bacchus, and there are different interpretations of this energy, of this deity that maybe reinvented itself over and over again, went to different areas, and so on and so forth. All of that just becomes inconsequential, because that being that's trying to interact with you on your theory doesn't believe the same way that you do, which that's not scientific. You're just creating your version of a religion. So it's very disturbing to see this happening so much currently. There are plenty, let me say this. There are plenty of theologians and researchers and historians and so on and so on and so on that aren't like that. They're not like that. And some of them are believers. Esoterica, really, really fucking good channel. Esoterica does such good work. Dr. Sledge is AG. That dude is awesome. And he's funny. Just a good dude. Good dude, good work, Doesn't say backhanded comments on any specific, objectively, or just let's say subjectively non-violent or non-offensive groups. He'll say something about like the Inquisition. He'll say something about the torturing and stuff. He'll say things about stuff that I feel like we would all say, hey, that's not cool. That's bad. Don't do that. He'll say things that make sense for most beings, but he won't attack specific belief systems or practices or sciences or whatever. He presents it like a scientist, like a theologian, like a historian. And the reason that I care about this to this extent is because, as you probably have heard me say, I fucking hate cults. I don't like cults. I think that they're so disgusting and predatory, and a very big reason for the state of affairs today are cults. Many of us like kind of reference it or talk about it, but don't really go into how deep it is, how much it controls of this realm. Cults are essentially why we go through what we go through on a day-to-day, and why things are the way that they are currently. It's not to say that there isn't some, deeper metaphysical explanation or energies that affect those cults, but at the same time, if more of us were vigilant on seeing them for what they are and calling them out and speaking out against them instead of trying to like not get canceled or whatever fucking stupid shit everyone's worried about, then I think we would be in much more advantageous and beneficial situations. We wouldn't be in these situations where we have to like beg and plead for things to change and be better, because we would be, self-managing in a beneficial and positive position rather than like always reactionary, and even in that reactionary response, like doing not very much. It's concerning and disturbing to me, just to hear the smugness and the weirdness you can hear. For me, when I listen to those specific platforms and the way that they talk, you can hear, and it's not just Christians, it's not just Judaism, Canaanites, it's not just Muslims, and those more Abrahamic systems. I'm saying in totality, cults. There are other cults that are being built up right now, and I can hear it in them too. That whole green light shit with, what's going on with that. Not to say that all of the beings within these groups believe this way. That's never the case. I am not an absolutist. I'm not saying that any one of these groups is just completely shit. I'm saying that there are a lot, and they don't check their own people. So there are contingents within these systems, within these practices, principles, whatever, that don't think like that. They're very rational and logical, but they don't check those that are in their groups that are not rational and are, tiki-torchy type groups who impose themselves and their will on others. And, that leads to things like the Inquisition. If you research that story, because I don't like to affirm history unless there's proof of it, but there are lots of accounts, and that is a horrifying time frame if it happened. Honestly, Charlemagne added a whole bunch of time and then called himself Constantine, so who the fuck knows. But regardless, to come up with that and then kind of like it's okay. So it's the principle that I talk about pretty regularly. Even if that's not true, why the fuck do you want me to think that's true? Why do you want me to think that people were being tortured to that extent, burned alive, put into like all these torture devices and just like worked the fuck out for not believing in your cult, for not allowing you to come in and tell them to be illogical and depraved and slaves to cult behavior? You know, why would you want me to believe that if something wasn't to that? So less so the time frame and more so the actions, the things that are insinuated to be true. It's just disturbing, and I think that it's always kind of bubbling under the surface. That satanic panic shit that happened, objectively that happened in the 80s. Creepy. Very, very creepy. That could have gone to some weird places. There was a lot of censorship that happened during those times. And maybe there is like a overreaction to that, where you, after that, started to see very intense, like fucked up, imagery in response. Whether you consider it to be satanic or just like sadomasochistic stuff and other even worse things than that, one thing doesn't make the other thing not so bad, is I guess what I'm saying, or so good. And I'm not trying to necessarily censor. As soon as it starts to become an imposition, as soon as you start to impose your beliefs or practices onto others to the point of like calling it law or absolute law or cosmic law, that is fucking weird. That's weird to do. And again, not just talking about the Abrahamic folks, talking about cults in general. There are many of them forming right now, and a lot of it is kind of like targeting those that have left the Abrahamic practices. It's very weird. I saw a post recently where this dude's talking about his near-death experience, and what he describes sounds very like xenotheistic, like very alien-based sounding. He didn't say alien. It just, what he said, he went to a white room with all these instruments, and he was on a table, and there were these little beings that looked like beings from a very specific movie, which I thought was interesting. That sounds like alien shit, bruh. And he was like, it was so beautiful and so on and so forth. And everyone in the comments was like, this is definitely real. I can attest to how this is real. And I know that a lot of that is bots. I know a lot of that is beings that just really want attention, and they want someone to be like, oh, really? Can you tell me more? That's sad. That makes me sad. Anyway, but some of those beings either believe what they're saying, or someone's going to come in those comments, and they are going to think that shit is definitely real, because they're looking for something to believe in that fashion. So I went in the comments and I was like, hey, possibility, this could be true, or everyone could be the targets of social engineering and indoctrination agendas trying to get you ingratiated to the idea of transhumanism. Because the way he spoke it, he said, your body's just the banana peel. And so what do you do with a banana peel? You throw it away. And it's like, and I kind of subscribe to the idea of this being a vessel. It's not, you're not the body. But the way that it was being said was like, you just throw the body away. I found that very strange, the way he worded that. And like, basically trying to say that this is a beautiful experience, and there's an even more beautiful experience that comes after that. And just the way that it was worded all the way around was like very, very seemingly manipulative. Like, look at what you have to look forward to. But that's not the only near-death experience that I've heard. There are others that, are positive but different. But what I've noticed is that, How many of you have seen near-death experience stories where they say the opposite? They don't say something positive. They're like, it was fucking horrifying. I'm so glad I didn't have to stay there. I got to come back. What am I going to do? Is that where I'm going to... No one does that. Or I won't say no one does that, but those stories don't get any kind of push or airtime. Why is that? I do think it's potentially to push the narrative of like, you don't need the body. We've got this, altered sleeve for you. You can put yourself in a stack and, just kind of live in a robot or live in a computer or something like that. There were videos going around of a supposed company that basically just had the altered sleeve technology, but I kind of think that was like promo for that TV show. Because honestly, if that were something that were the case, don't you think that would be more newsworthy? They would be talking about that on blogs and all kinds of shit. But who knows? Maybe that is a fucking company, and maybe the promo was the TV show. Who knows? I don't know. Dude, that dog, I really fucking hate cults. I don't like cults. I don't like when beings get taken advantage of like that. Because it's not just being taken advantage of. You're using their hope. You're using their pain, their anguish, their tired need for change. They want something better so badly that they'll listen to your bullshit and allow you to program the way that they view their own existence. That's how tired and sad and desperate they are. Or they're a child, or you're imprinting shit on a child who doesn't necessarily know any better. And it's not to say that some of those practices or religions don't have healthy ways that they can be practiced, but most of the time what I've seen is not that. The deeper you get into these institutions, these churches and shit like that, the more oppressive and like cult-like it becomes in every sense of the word. And then you look at the leaders of these places and look at the fucking shit they do, dude. It's very well known in the South that pastors, they are fucking. And not just their wives. They are fucking. And, it's just like a thing that is known in the church. But it goes on for a decent amount of time until someone decides, I'm telling. Someone decides, I'm fucking snitching. And then it becomes a thing. And then they move to another church or, whatever ends up happening. And just the things that they say can be very hate. It's like people talk about all the time. There's like a veil over everyone's eyes for a decent amount of time, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this dude really likes hanging out with kids, in like a inappropriate seeming way. Now that I think about it, or oh, this dude really like touches on women a lot at these Bible studies. What's up with and he's taking her home from church. Oh, okay. Well, what's his wife gonna do? It's just very strange stuff. And I know it may seem like I'm attacking their belief systems or something like that, but I'm not, dude. It's them. It's their practices and manipulations to the text. And not acknowledging that there are manipulations. You can show them that the text is vastly different from the KJV or the NIV or the one that they're using. They don't care. They don't care. They're going to keep using the one that they have rather than acknowledging, hey, Jesus did not say that. Jesus didn't say that. You can keep following, Constantine or Francis Bacon or whoever it is you want to follow, but just know that's not the word of God. That is the word of Shakespeare, or that is the word of Constantine. I don't understand. I don't understand. We were having a conversation about perception versus belief, and even within that, I got sort of frustrated because there were parts of it where it was like, the conversations can move so fast that a being will say something and it's like, wait, there's an assumption that you just said there though that you can't apply to other beings, and it just moves so quickly that it's like, oh, well, now I've missed that, and they're still operating off of that assumption. I try not to do that. You can't really do that. You can make assumptions for yourself and you can try to generalize, but once you start generalizing, you're on a slippery slope, or you're on, thin ice, because that is faulty when you start to do that. I don't know. Anyway, I did not intend on that to be that to be that long. Yeah, man. Void stopped in for a minute. He probably has something going on. This wasn't meant to be like a thing. I think I'm really just trying to avoid talking about the personal stuff. Because I'm very frustrated and isolated. Very isolated. But, I don't know. Just some food for thought, I guess. This is a topic I think I may end up going into again soon. It may be through the door or portal of a different topic. I'll probably end up touching on that, I guess is the way to say it. But yeah, like I said, just food for thought. There's a lot of delusional stuff going on right now. And I guess I'm just trying to kind of push back against it. Not just religion-wise, but just in general. I just posted a bunch of patents. A bunch of documented U.S. patents for the things that I talk about, because, there was a comment that was like, put down the drugs, and I'm like, so because I read, I'm on drugs. Because I read and listen to lectures and actually pay attention to this thing that you are insinuating is real, I am on drugs. So then, I think I'm just going to start doing that every once in a while, just to do it. Pictures of my own research from under my microscope, or U.S. patents that show directly, not only is this thing not science fiction, but they have patented it to use, whether it be an infinite patent or a patent that goes to 2029 or 2032. These are real patents that you can now go to my Instagram and go look at. And I'm going to keep doing that, because it's a little annoying when I talk about things. I take the time to go and research some shit, and then when I talk about it, they've done such a good job at, demonizing or villainizing those that do research and present said research, or even just bring attention to real things, that more beings than not will be like, oh, this nigga's crazy. Obviously you're crazy. But then they don't go read. Just as I was speaking about the other day, there's belief without works. Why does that seem logical to anyone? And to take it a step further, why is that more logical than actually checking things out? I don't get that. I don't fucking understand. And if the attempt to take said things like that, this is kind of personal. If the idea to say something like, I've asked multiple times for you to get some help, that backhanded threat, I can, just because you don't understand the court system and think that on the front end that will work, I know that at some point, unless you want to display to everyone that the court system is faulty, that will have to come back around in the appellate system. And I've been to prison, so I'll sit, in prison. This isn't like a prison situation, but like, if the idea is, oh, I'll put you in a hospital if you don't do what I say, which is fucking psychotic. I'll sit in that. That sucks. That's more malicious than putting someone in prison, because they'll put drugs in you and shock you and do all kinds of torturous things. If you're willing to do that to someone after... Anyway, getting into personal shit. Yeah, man, I'm just... a bunch of stuff going through my head. And I think a kind of general theme for me at the moment is like the fear is gone. I'm not full of shit or joking when I say that. The fear is gone. The confidence is not gone. And the more knowledge you take in, real knowledge, not indoctrination, not manipulation or agenda, the more capable you are and the more prepared you are for the eventualities of this place, for it to defend itself, for it to go on the offensive toward you, and to attack you. And so, just food for thought. Research goes a long way. Documentation goes a long way, in many different aspects of those words. So, I don't know. I love you, dog. Bye.